What would happen if the player who faced Messi on the most intense Champions League nights and also crossed paths with Cristiano Ronaldo on the most brutal stages of modern football finally admitted something he never dared to say while he was still at his peak? Mo Salah has broken his silence, and his confession changes everything. Because according to him, one of them doesn't beat you with power. He doesn't even beat you with speed. He beats you by making you defend the wrong reality. And the other one makes you afraid to be human. So the question is simple. Who was truly harder to face, Messi or Ronaldo? Before we begin, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because what you're about to hear comes from someone who stood directly across from Lionel Messi, and directly across from Cristiano Ronaldo, and survived both. To understand why Mo Salah's words hit so hard, you have to understand who he really is in this story. Salah wasn't just another player watching greatness from far away, he lived it up close, on nights when the stadium goes dark and only pressure remains. For years, he played matches that can't be explained by tactics alone, but by personality. He faced Messi in knockout ties where every mistake feels like a sentence. And he also came up against Cristiano Ronaldo in games where the margin for error disappears, where one lapse of concentration can cost you a final, a qualification, an entire season. And here's the paradox. At 38, Messi is still leading attacking statistics, still stacking numbers that seem to mock time itself, with seasons where his goal contributions still look impossible. Ronaldo, at his best, delivered between 50 and 60 goals per season, turning knockout matches into personal stages. Two legends, two statistical monsters. But according to Salah, the numbers don't explain the real problem, because facing them was never about marking them well. It was about surviving what happens before the duel, before the collision, before the one-on-one, before the move you think is coming, and then it doesn't. So how did one man experience both of those realities so differently? For years, Mo Salah avoided this conversation, not because he didn't have an opinion, but because football, especially at the highest level, is political. And when you're still playing, every word becomes a headline, every nuance becomes a weapon. How could he analyze Messi without sounding like he was making excuses? And how could he talk about Cristiano Ronaldo without the world turning it into a toxic debate? So Salah stayed silent, until something changed. With time, with maturity, with the emotional distance you get from living through all of it, there was no longer any need to please anyone. No locker rooms to protect, no narratives to feed. In a long reflective interview, Salah was finally asked the question fans had been obsessing over for more than a decade. You've faced Messi. You've faced Cristiano. Who was more difficult? He didn't answer right away. And that pause mattered, because when a player like Salah hesitates, it isn't for drama. It's because the truth is uncomfortable. Then he said something that sounded simple, until you realized it wasn't. It's not about who's better. It's about how they destroy you. That was the moment. Not a debate about trophies, not a list of Ballon d'Ors, but the confession of someone who was left breathless, out of answers, his body reacting a split second too late against both men. And what he revealed next explains why facing Messi and facing Ronaldo felt like two completely different sports. When Mo Salah talks about Lionel Messi, his tone changes. Not louder, not more emotional, lower. Because Messi, according to Salah, was never a problem you could solve with aggression. You don't feel him, Salah once explained. And that's the danger. As a player, you're trained to read signals. A dropped shoulder, a sudden burst, a change of direction. Messi gives you none of that. He doesn't announce his intention. He doesn't accelerate when you expect him to. Sometimes he doesn't even look like he's attacking. And in that moment, you're already lost. Salah describes it as a distortion of reality. You think you're in the right place. You think your team is well positioned, that the line is compact, that the angle is closed. But Messi doesn't attack what you can see. He attacks what you haven't noticed yet. One step to the left, too late. Half a second of hesitation, fatal. That's why so many elite players look ridiculous against him. Not because they're slow, because they're defending yesterday's situation while Messi is already playing tomorrow's move. And the most unsettling part is this. At an age when explosiveness should fade, Messi keeps doing the same thing. He keeps pulling entire teams out of position. He keeps forcing full defensive blocks to collapse with a single touch. Because Messi doesn't beat opponents. He reprograms them. By the time you realize you were wrong, The pass has already been played, the shot has already been taken, and you're left asking the most painful question in football. How did he get there when I was sure I was right? According to Salah, that feeling is worse than being beaten for pace, because speed can be respected. But being wrong without knowing why? That stays with you. If Messi makes you question your perception, Cristiano Ronaldo makes you question your bravery. According to Mo Salah, facing Ronaldo was never silent. It was loud, physical, relentless. With Cristiano, Salah explained, you can't switch off, not for 1 second. Because Ronaldo doesn't need you to be out of position. He only needs you to be imperfect. One step too deep, a jump half a second late, a glance at the ball instead of the man. That's enough. Ronaldo attacks opponents directly. He challenges you in the air, in the box, in transition. He forces duels where hesitation gets punished immediately. And the fear doesn't come from what he does once. It comes from what he does again and again. As an opponent, you start thinking ahead. If I lose this duel, it's a goal. If I mistime this jump, it's a goal. If I relax for 1 moment, it's a goal. That psychological pressure builds. By minute 60, your legs are still there, but your mind isn't. That's why Ronaldo scored so many decisive goals in knockout matches. That's why his numbers explode when the margin for error disappears. He doesn't bend the system like Messi. He breaks the individual. Salah admits that, against Ronaldo, many opponents start defending not to win, but not to lose. And that's already defeat. Because once fear enters your decision-making, your timing disappears. Your positioning follows. And suddenly, the goal you were trying to prevent becomes inevitable. Messi confuses you. Ronaldo scares you. 2 different nightmares, equally destructive. What makes Mo Salah's confession so powerful isn't that he picks a side, it's that he refuses to. In football history, we've seen extraordinary attackers before. Ronaldo Nazario destroyed defenses with speed. Zidane controlled space with elegance. Henry combined both. But Salah's words suggest something unprecedented. Never before had 2 players existed at the same time, creating 2 completely different forms of football trauma. Messi forces teams to redesign their structure. He doesn't care about your pressing triggers, your defensive line, your marking system. He makes the system look obsolete. Ronaldo forces individuals to exceed their limits. He doesn't care how compact your block is. He attacks your focus, your timing, your courage. And that explains something crucial. Why do some say Messi is impossible to read? Why do others say it's impossible to relax against Ronaldo? One destroys geometry. The other destroys nerves. That's why the GOAT debate never ends, because fans argue with numbers, while players remember feelings. The feeling of being in the right place and still losing, or the feeling of knowing exactly what's coming and still being unable to stop it. Salah's confession doesn't end the debate, it redefines it. It tells us greatness isn't measured only in goals or trophies, but in the kind of fear you plant inside your opponent's mind. And maybe the most uncomfortable truth is this: football never truly learned how to stop either of them, and we may never see 2 like them again. So when Mo Salah says, one makes you defend the wrong space, and the other makes you fear a mistake, he isn't comparing trophies, he's describing survival. Now it's your turn. If you were a defender, would you rather be confused for 90 minutes or terrified for 90 minutes? Tell us in the comments. If this video made you see Messi and Ronaldo differently, like it, share it, and subscribe to the channel for more stories told with no filters. Because sometimes the truth doesn't come from the numbers, it comes from the people who had to face them. After the interview ended, Salah added one final line that never makes the headlines. But it should. He said that against Messi, you feel stupid. But against Ronaldo, you feel guilty. Guilty because you knew what was going to happen. Guilty because you prepared for it. Guilty because everyone will say, you should have done better. Messi leaves you with no explanations. Ronaldo leaves you with no excuses. And that difference matters because football culture forgives confusion. But it never forgives mistakes. That's why some players rewatch matches against Messi in silence, while matches against Ronaldo replay in their heads for years, not as highlights, as warnings. There's one last detail in Salah's story that rarely gets discussed. When players talk about Messi, they lower their voice. When they talk about Ronaldo, they raise it. And that tells you everything. Messi humiliates you in silence. There's no duel you can point to, no collision you can blame, No single concrete mistake to accuse. Replays don't even help you. You just watch the space open and wonder why you didn't feel it sooner. Ronaldo humiliates you publicly, in the air, in the box, in front of millions, with a leap, a run, a strike that tells the world you were late. Salah's confession forces us to ask a question fans rarely consider. Is football crueler when it exposes your weakness, or when it makes you doubt your intelligence? Because in the end, players don't remember the goals. They remember the feeling after the goal. And Messi and Ronaldo left two very different scars. So now we ask you, if you had to choose one nightmare as a defender, losing your position or losing your nerve, which one would break you faster? Write your answer in the comments. And if you enjoy football stories told from inside the battle, like the video, share it, and subscribe to the channel. Because legends are admired by fans, but they're defined by the fear they create in their opponents.